to get anything good done in life, it's hard, and most hard things hurt. So there's this very simple thing we all bump into 1,000 times in our life, which is like, ouch, I don't want to, I did it. Whoa, look at this thing. And you tend to forget about the pain once the results appear. I've never loved it. I tolerate my own videos because I'm my own boss and there's no overreach, but I've always kind of hated it. And then it kind of, again, dawned on me that like, wow, if you want to get to the good thing, it hurts. And what really hurts, editing. So I guess I should like fully dive into trying to figure this editing thing out. And that was the beginning of the journey of building a complete agency around the thing I hate. Video is just a vehicle to take story where it's going. So treat it as such. You start to realize like, oh, videos don't go viral. Stories do.
Welcome to another episode of Founders Growth. We have on the show today one of my closest friends on my entrepreneurial journey, Dan Bennett. And before I let him talk, I need to share with everybody just how cool this guy is and the part that he's like played in my life. Because we met during the pandemic, during the lockdown. We met in a digital community, and just over that time, I got to show him some stuff. He got to show me so much stuff, right? Like I can be on video because of this guy. He also helped me design the book cover for my book, right? So his place in my life is substantial, and I'm super excited to have him here. Dan, can you give a quick rundown on the various things that you are running and the way you work with clients currently, please, so we can dive into the conversation?
Yeah. Usually intros like that, I'm looking around for who this guy is because I want to know him too. Very, very gracious introduction. Currently we're so hyper-focused beyond previously being hyper-focused that it's getting easier and easier to kind of talk about what we do, which is fun because it saves everyone time and it keeps us on track. Long ago, I helped many big companies create video projects. And although the checks always cleared and the logos look great on the website, it wasn't super fulfilling. In 2017, I shifted from behind the camera to in front of it and realized, ooh, being a filmmaker has made this making content thing pretty easy for me. I wonder if I could get rid of the jargon and the theory and the fluff of filmmaking and just bring the tools to other people and maybe help them film themselves. And then it worked. I'm leaving a lot of great stuff out, but in 2020, we all know what happened. On top of meeting you, good sir, we started shifting to, I wonder if we can help people build in-home studios like we were before, help them make their own content, but do it remotely because we're not allowed to go anywhere. And then that started to work. So our first hyper-focus was helping those who film themselves. And now, I don't know if we're quite at laser focus, but we're close. It's really easy to get in touch with the sort of people that need what we have. And all we do is three things. We help people build in-home studios. If they got that figured out already, we help them with strategies so they get some kind of return on their videos. And if they got those two things figured out already, we're available for editing their beautiful footage once they've shot it. So try and keep it real simple and linear nowadays and remove as much friction as possible, because the older I get, the more sexy it becomes to save time and energy. So
Absolutely. Okay, so when I asked you to come do this and you said yes, I've been in thinking mode since then, right? Because I do know you pretty well. And one of the things that I've always kind of found interesting about this more recent pivot for you is whenever we first started hanging out and talking, you didn't want to edit for anybody. You hated it. You were going so hard in the other direction, right? And
yeah.
Not for nothing, you ended up in this space doing some editing, right? So can you talk a little bit about like leaning into the work that people just naturally see value in you doing versus fighting it out of some potentially weird attempt to chase something else?
Yeah. I felt smart when this dawned on me, but it did not dawn on me because I'm smart. One day, through some mentorship, it kind of occurred to my mentor, Andrew, at the time, and myself, that to get anything good done in life, it's hard, and most hard things hurt. So there's this very simple thing we all bump into 1,000 times in our life, which is like, ouch, I don't want to, I did it. Whoa, look at this thing. And you tend to forget about the pain once the results appear. And so when I started getting some of this feedback in 2022, late 22, around, hey man, you help people build studios and you help with strategy and you got these cohorts and stuff you're doing. Like, why don't you edit for anyone? And I would say out loud, I hate editing. It's been my bread and butter. I'm really good at it. It's taken me some awesome places in life and you know, on the map as well. But like, I've never loved it. I tolerate my own videos because I'm my own boss and there's no overreach, but I've always kind of hated it. And then it kind of, again, dawned on me that like, wow, if you want to get to the good thing, it hurts. And what really hurts, editing. So I guess I should like fully dive into trying to figure this editing thing out. And that was the beginning of the journey of building a complete agency around the thing I hate in a journey to eventually one day not be clicking the mouse myself anymore.
So okay, because and I would like to kind of dive into this time that you're going through around this thing, right? Because like we met in 20 and you were anti, right? You were the antipreneur at that time. And I got some questions about that. We're going to get into that. But like, you know, we start working together and I'm like, man, why not just do it for them? Why not just do it? Oh man, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. What was the crux of the change? Was it one conversation? Was it like, how did you decide that it was worth the struggle, worth the attempt to try?
You know, there was kind of a moment, but of course it's 1,000, you know, pails of sand hung on the bridge you built in middle school until the final scoop makes it break type thing. Like I know there's way more to it, but there was kind of a final moment. And it had been about 2 years. I had priced myself out or was attempting to price myself out of editing. And in my world, day rates go for about 800. So if you work an 8-hour day, you know, you might think $100 an hour if you had to break it down to like an employee type thought process on editing. The better you are, the more sought after you are, the more you can charge per day rate. And I was to the point where I had 10-hour, $3,000 blocks. So it's like $300 an hour, which I was not a $300 an hour editor, but I was selling these blocks and people were using my skills over time to eat up that block. And I was like, crap. And, you know, I'll say I wasn't selling 5 of these a week or anything, but they were still selling. And I'm like, I'm just going to say I don't edit anymore because this overpricing thing has not stopped people down to zero, you know?
And pausing for just a moment, like, are you mad? Right? Like, are you like, guys, I'm trying to gouge you. Like, why do you keep buying? Like, is it frustration that it's just not working, or is it just kind of like, maybe I should lean in?
Yeah, no, it was complete frustration. A little bit of everything you said, but mostly like, you literally, if you scheduled it correctly, could go get a Hollywood editor. I know them. They could work for the same rate, and their names are on films you've seen. You know, like what is going on here?
Yeah.
And the price raise was to try to reduce editing down to zero, where people would look at me like, well, who are you? I'm not paying that, you know?
Exactly.
And it just didn't work. So I was like, oh, I felt dumb because it didn't work, and I was frustrated because it was not working. And then a couple of the final time blocks I sold before I said no, they were great clients. They weren't even that picky. And I'm like, dang it, this actually isn't that hard, but still, like, I hate this so much. So yeah, it was an interesting time for sure.
Man, I get like the beauty of that moment, right? Because until you were a founder and you're on one of these paths, right? The idea that people are lining up to give you money for a thing that we've just decided we're not good at, right? Because let's look at it realistically, right? Like, you know, while you're bringing other value to the table, obviously, right? Because, you know, if you're not that good of an editor, then obviously, you know, like something else is happening here, right? And we're going to talk about story and all that other stuff, because I do think that that's probably why these people were so excited to pay these rates for you. But like, only a founder is going to be like, you know what? I know you want to give me money for this, but I don't think I'm very good at it, and I want your money for this thing over here, right? And then being frustrated when that isn't working. Like, it's only like us that would have that. Everyone else would be like, just take the money.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And even in retrospect, talking to Andrew, who's got an awesome community called First Gen, which is all first generation entrepreneurs. And the first time I met him, I didn't even realize until I met him, oh wait, I'm the first entrepreneur in my family. I never even thought of that, you know. So we bonded over this. Yeah, it's crazy to think about. So we bonded over that, and I was part of this community. And they had an upcoming event in Kentucky, and he was like, there's 15 to 20 of us from the online community getting together in person at this like dedicated office space. My friend owns it. He's part of the community. We're going to spend a couple days just looking at our upcoming year and what's it going to, helping each other out and all this stuff. I'm like, sounds amazing. I'm broke. Like, I don't, and he's like, no, jump on a plane. I'll get you like a Motel 6, like just get here. And I'm like, okay, well, I love you, but like, I'm still going to have to like rent a car. So he's like, no, I'll pick you up each day. Like, it's fine. We're good. I'm like, okay, man. So sure enough, he books me a plane ride. I fly out, puts me up, grabs me the next morning. We start on this, kind of couple day journey. And when it got to be my turn, and there's way more to this story that's so fascinating, but like when it got to be my turn, it was kind of like telling the same story I'm telling now. And he's like, yeah, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. And so now I'm in a room full of people and him. And he's like, I love you so much, but I think it's one of the dumbest things I've ever seen, that you help someone build a studio and then make great videos and become good on camera, and then you won't edit their stuff. And I'm like, it's not like that. It's not like a human did these steps. And he's like, yeah, they can't do the steps because you're not editing. And I'm like, bro, jeez. And I'm like, all right, so, what does that look like? He's like, you don't want to hear my answer. And I'm like, well, I'm here, so obviously I do. What's it look like? He's like, it looks like you start up what, I hate the word agency, but I have to use it, right? So like you start up an agency and you MVP it and you do it all yourself and you hire when it's time. And I'm like, that sounds horrible.
Yeah,
that sounds like the
that's not what
antithesis.
I don't want to do. I want to be a founder. I just want to build this thing that people do. Like we all have this weird version of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in that moment, right? Because it sounds like this person cares about you. You've got some good relationship, right? You're here on kind of a weird situation, right? You didn't, he's helping you out. He's getting you there, and now he's challenging the crap out of your decision making in front of a group of people and everything. Like,
yeah.
How were you able to like hear that advice when it would have just been so easy to be like, you don't get it? Like, do you think that comes from relationship? Do you think do you think you would have heard it in a different environment?
No, I don't. And what's funny is I have this part of my personality that responds like this. So there's a level of frustration, anger, things being out of my control, out of my hands, logistically things melting down, your system breaking or cracking when it's worked well for a long time. Like any of these things, there's a level to all of these things, including 2020, losing everything, my tenants not paying rent, having to shut down my, business conference we had running, all those things where I pass this line and then I'm like, I mean, this is ridiculous, right? Everyone's seeing what I'm saying. And that is the thing. It becomes so ridiculous that it's funny now. So I got to a point to where like I broke a little, and that's that humor. And I was like, all right, bro, well, everyone in this room can help me do this. So get ready to take all my calls and give me all the supporting emails for the next however long, because I guess we're doing this, and it was a very loving environment. So all this was in jest. Yeah. But I did get to that point where I'm like, okay, like it's funny now. It's past the point of frustration and anger, and it's funny.
Well, and being a word nerd, obviously, like the way that he talks about it, right? It sounds like he kind of had to fight to stay in your own mindset around it, right? We're going to help you build a studio. We're going to help you looking great on camera. And then good luck.
Good luck.
Right? Like, I mean, and, it kind of, I think holding it that way really, I think, takes away appreciation for how hard it is, right? Because content is a job, right? Like, I'm trying to launch this thing, and I know how much effort it takes to stay ahead of the schedule and have the can, so that way you don't compromise on the standards that are important to you around the show and everything. And so that all comes, I mean, honestly, from knowing you and spending time with you and everything. But man, like this is a job. Yeah. It's a lot, right? And it's kind of that, like, thinking about the buyer's journey, right? Now that you have this studio and now you know the tech that you need and it kind of does seem like the next problem to solve kind of situation, Yeah. And it always, because we spend a lot of time together, right? You went through my program and we've talked a lot about video and everything. And it always seemed weird to me. And then one day you just showed up and you're like, so we're doing editing. And I was kind of like, I mean, half of me was like, finally, right? But then the other part of me was like, I wonder what changed,
Yeah. Yeah,
So
it's funny too because the on a different day, but with a conversation with the same person, Andrew, he was like, you know, I'm glad that you're going in this direction because when I look linearly at content, editing's the hardest part. And even if you're good at it, so asterisk, you're good at it, you drop down to read that asterisk, it's like it still takes time even when you're good at it. So it is the hardest part of production. And you know, if you point a smartphone at you, you just talk, you don't edit, love it. But if you are trying to put something together, no matter what that is, it's the hardest part. And he's like, so you lead these people through all these hard things and you get to the hardest part and then you're like, see ya. And I'm like, oh God, you put it that way. And my argument was always like, we don't take people linearly through these three products. They fall into buckets from 1,000 different directions. He's like, yeah, I understand that. But they probably dealt with one of these things before they got to you and needed the editing. So they are familiar with those. They just didn't work with you. And if you build it right, you might get to the point where you do help someone build a studio and then help them build strategy. And then they do so well that you help them edit. And it's happened twice since where someone's linearly went through our stuff. And I'm like, wow, you know, if that didn't exist, that wouldn't have been possible for that person. And I always thought of like those guys that do the base jumping and you can pay them. Mm-hmm. And they're like, all right, we're going to count to three. We're wiggling out to the edge. I got you, blah, blah, blah. It'd be like if you taught them all the stuff and put a parachute on, we're like, see you. You know, like, that would be terrible. But when you got the guy with you, it's still terrifying, but at least, you know, you're in good hands. So yeah, that was kind of the final, again, you want people to have great things. You have to do the hard things that lead to great things. And I'm like, oh man, so I guess I'll go make my bed and eat my vegetables. Like whatever.
And, you know, because like I've known you for a long time and I wasn't the only person in that first place where we connected telling you to go edit and just lean into the work and everything else like that. Right. Which is that kind of brings up this very cool thing about having the right mentor, having the right coach, having the right people around you, the right community around you, because like sometimes you're getting the same advice, right? It's like if you're dating someone who's a really bad fit for you and all your friends can see it, but you can't yet, you know? And I think community is that same thing. And that right mentor was able to say it in a way that you were able to hear it and work on it and process it and not just like try to slam it up against the wall so it can then just like fall off and everything. And
yeah. And all that counts too, right? I go back to that middle school bridge, you got to build out of the popsicle sticks or whatever. And then you keep dumping sand in the bucket. Everyone's input counted.
Yes.
But there was a moment where, okay, there's
right?
something's changed. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause me being me, I'm like, I wonder how many times he would have had to say it if he hadn't had the 150,000 other people in your circles telling you that you should be going down this path, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I know I should do more crunches. Thanks a lot for telling me. See ya. Yeah.
Gym starts Monday. Always starting in the future. Okay. So I would like to talk, you've done a lot of very different things in your path. And I knew that, and then I learned about this one thing later on in our friendship that I think is very, very interesting. I think of music as being one of the weirdest entrepreneurial paths on the planet, right? Because it's so subjective, and there's a lot of gatekeeping, and there's a lot of hustle and everything. And you were in a band, right? Traveling band that made money off of merch and everything else like this. And so when you first told me about this thing, you kind of said it in this offhand manner of like, yeah, I was in a touring band that like actually made money, even though we weren't big, you know? Yeah. So now as an entrepreneur who's been in music, right, and done that, how does that stint in music impact how you think about marketing and brand and how you promote yourself and your services?
It ties in so directly. And it's so funny because at that time, I you know, on TV or in a book, I had heard the word entrepreneur, but I didn't know what that word meant. I didn't use it. It wasn't part of my vocabulary. But that's exactly what was happening. So we had no support. So I was doing, and I'll date myself, I was doing our MySpace designs, you know, and putting our songs up and doing our website. And I had found a printer for a business I was a partner in. There was a coffee shop and they did our t-shirts. So I'm like, hey, could you do my band's t-shirts too? You know? And then I was like, hey, your designs kind of suck. Could we make the designs and bring them in, you know? And they're like, yeah. And then I did good designs, and John Hankard, who's still a friend to this day, was like, you guys sell quite a few t-shirts. Do you know other bands who sell t-shirts? And I'm like, yeah, there's plenty of them. He's like, I'll give you 20% if you bring in an order or whatever. I'm like, here we go, you know? So then I just started telling other bands, when like, oh, I like your shirt. I'm like, yeah, I actually designed it and I print it right by my house. And if you ever need any, you know. And so I ended up with this like side hustle kind of t-shirt, you know, hawking to bands. So I would show up to shows with like boxes, take to merch, get paid, get to know the venue owner, so they'd let me in and leave. And I wasn't even there for the show. I was just dropping off merch. And that was the first time in my life where I'm like, oh man, you know, I was schooled to be an engineer. So like I hated it, but I was good at it. So I had a job. But like I'm looking at this, I'm like, ooh, I'm helping other bands do what we did, which was like save money, tell their story, and get to know their fans a little more intimately through controlling their own website and their own this and their own that, you know. And if I do it, I'm only one person removed because I'm in a band and I know how it goes and my heart goes out to you and all that kind of stuff. So it was my foray into entrepreneurship, but I didn't even know what that word meant. I was just making some cash on the side. And so not only does music and its endeavor as a band, as a institution trying to stay on the road and, you know, pay the band insurance or whatever come into play, but so does the actual creative output in my career. Both of those tie into that time. But that's all I ever cared about. I had heard so many bands that I knew well say, you know, they'd wrap up their career, they got close, or they got one top 40 hit and it never popped off again type of thing or whatever. They would retire and sell all their gear to like break even. And I'm like, I don't want that, you know? So I did everything I could to stay even the whole time. And so we never took debt, even when we recorded albums. And again, in retrospect, I just didn't have money and I was going to hustle. But with my current brain, I'm like, I was an entrepreneur. I was solving problems to make money. Like that's exactly what was happening. So it really set me up well for my future without me even knowing it. Cause to me, it was just this really fun hobby that we got kind of lucky and went, you know, 6 or 7 years in. Yeah, good times.
Interesting. Okay. So that question leads me to this question, right? You talk about story a lot with people and been hugely helpful to me and, you know, a lot of other people in the community that we met in. And, you know, then there's also the realm of art, right? So there's business, there's art, and then there's content. And I think of content as kind of this bridge over this line between business and art, right? And I'm curious, how do you work with people to kind of talk about this idea of you still got to be yourself, it still has to make sense, it still has to have an ROI, but it should still be you and authentic, right? Like how do you talk about that with your clients so that way they're bringing authentic selves, they're not putting on the stuffed shirt, they're not trying too hard? How do you get that point across to people who are new to the idea that it's got to be you, but it also has to fit?
Yeah. So I get asked a lot, like when I'm on podcasts and stuff like that, you know, if there's one word when you think about when you're helping people with video or whatever, what is it, you know? And I'm like, fear. You can boil so many of these things that either keep us from making video or actually compel us to make video down to some kind of fear. And a lot of times people hear fear and they think like, terrified. No, fear could just be like looking both ways at a stop sign so you don't get T-bone. That doesn't mean you're afraid. It means that you respect the fear of, I don't want to get hit, you know? So what that kind of led to as I experimented, you know, from 2020 till now, really with that kind of concept is, well, what combats fear or what keeps it at bay or what kills it or whatever, you know, metaphor you want to use. And what I've found, it's not a cure all, but what I found works a lot is permission. So I'm always on a quest to either get people to give themselves permission to be great on camera or for me to give them permission to be great on camera. And generally what that's boiled down to for me is forcing, and I think 95% of the time is true. The other 5, I force it, but like forcing everything, whether it's a pain point, a complaint, something you see between you and making great content, whatever, into being on a spectrum. And I'll give you a super easy to understand example. Teleprompters. I teleprompt everything I do. I did make some videos recently where I was just talking, but most of the time I am scripting and I am reading my words back. That's one end of a pretty extreme spectrum on that end. The other end would be I hit record, I don't even know what I'm going to say, and I just blow, and there's my video. Awesome. I'm jealous of those people. I love people who can do that. It's crazy to me. But for 99% of us, we are somewhere in between those two things. So the permission I'm going to give you is that whatever you think, whatever extreme you think you're supposed to be doing, that's not true. So let's find where you actually fall on that spectrum. And when I do workshops and stuff, I call it a cocktail. And I always say, like, you ever had a screwdriver? If you never had one, you made 50% juice, 50% vodka, that might be kind of strong depending on the size of the glass, right? So maybe the next time you make it, it's 75% juice, 25% vodka, and you're like, oh, this is a little better. I can see why people like these. And you find your, mix. And that is that spectrum. There's teleprompting and there's off the cuff. Where do you fall? Let's try some things and let's get there. And that kind of blankets their fear with permission. You have permission to find out where you exist. And then when you lock into that, you generally start to get a little bit closer to having fun when you create content instead of it always just being a grind.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Okay. So you said something in there that I'm curious about, right? Because, most video people I know all push the idea of like, you don't even need a camera. You just need your phone. You just need your phone. Right. And I'd seen this and before working with you, I kind of always had this thing of like, yeah, okay, bro, like you only need a phone. Everyone else needs everything. Right. Yeah. And, it was a delightful moment because you and I had decided to work together. Right. And I think we'd had one session, and I just kind of showed you a couple of things, right? And this is way back in the day. Like Sherpa was not a thing yet. Like my program now is tight, but like back in the day when we were working, it was loose, right? And you really had to like want it to get any kind of value out of it. It's much better now, but like really appreciate you coming in and trying because it was not nearly as polished as it is now. But we have one session, right? And then you had a sales meeting the next day. And you send me this delightful video of you getting into your car immediately after this thing and sending this beautiful off the cuff, like testimonial video. Like I still have it, right? We've never posted it. I've never shared it or anything because it was just delightful of you actually being that person, pulling out your phone, setting it up, launching right into it, and then like getting it out into the world, right? And it was like, you talk about permission and maybe that was like the permissible like element kind of thing for me because like up until that point, I just thought that this was a thing that people said, but like no one actually did. And then here was this guy who was actually like eating this dog food of like, don't overthink it. Right. Mm-hmm. And man, it was so freaking cool because like that was, I think the breaking of the moment for me because I was like, man, it is not all these other things, right? Because I was on the quest. I was like, oh, well, my camera's better, my mic is better, my lights. Like I was doing all these things, right? And the fear element is very, very interesting because when you're questing for that stuff, it is a fear element, right? Because like you don't think that you're big enough to carry that space, right? Or at least that's how I felt, right? I have a really awesome camera. It's okay if I look like this, right? And but that beautiful moment of like it doesn't have to be overproduced. It does need to be real, right? That was my first example of like actually seeing that everyone is overcomplicating it, right?
Yeah.
Fast forwarding to now, right? How hard is it to get people into motion with the bare bones setup? Are still most people chasing all the accoutrement out of like fear and stuff like this? Is it easier to get people to start on a lower level so that way they just get into motion? Or is it still the same?
I would say it's, if not the same, similar. It's a very strange phenomenon, and I've never been able to figure it out, which lends me to believe I may never figure it out. There's so much psychology in this whole video thing that, I'd have to go to school for 15 years just to start to understand. But you could look at my company and be like, hold on a minute. Like I just saw a video where you're sitting there with $15,000 worth of equipment, getting ready to send it out to 4 different creators all over the United States talking about like, I love helping people do this. Mm-hmm. That's not smartphones and lav mics. What are you talking about, bro? And what I love is just how you were saying your program's been tuned over time. Our messaging around our offerings have been tuned over time. And now those sorts of conversations open up the door to something super important to me, which is atypical use of video. All the ways I use video where people are like, oh, I never would have thought to do that. Because generally you think of ads, commercials, content that teaches someone something or entertainment or something. And those are all valid. And then, of course, you got movies and documentaries and all the big stuff. well-produced YouTube videos. So YouTuber, whatever. But there's so many ways, like you just mentioned, of sending someone a video, or there's so many ways to use video that aren't typical, that generally that conversation around like, well, okay, Dan, you're on a DSLR right now. You help people build all these studios. They all look really nice when you're done. You're telling me I could use a phone. Like what? Yes. And here's the entry point to that. It could be you went to a networking event, you met someone, made a really great connection, and real quick you pointed your camera at your face and said, hey, June, just met you. Thanks so much for sharing about that, blah, blah, blah. Just wanted to make sure we keep in contact, have a good day. And then you upload it to LinkedIn and send that DM and you're done. And it's like this impactful thing. To this day, people still get surprised when I send them videos, so that's fun. And that is not something that you have to go and sit in a studio to do. You can just do it. So once people, again, give themselves permission, like, oh, you're saying I could create any kind of video, not just I'm going to use a smartphone to make my Facebook ad. Then people are saying, oh, I see what's possible. I can use this for, things that maybe aren't my video course online, but they are how I say hi to someone I just networked with.
That is okay, right? Because, like being a sales guy and teaching sales and everything else like this, like there's some use cases of video and prospecting and follow-ups and stuff like that, because I'm in the space, I'm very familiar with, right? And whenever I, like, you can make one video follow-up and maybe use it in a couple of it, right? But it's that like wanting to find a use, like wanting to put it into play and seeing if it causes a lift, seeing if it causes ease, right?
Yeah.
I think that's fascinating, right? Because it was just so well done. And because the meat of this thing that I'm trying to work towards is that like all of like this does not matter nearly as much as the story, right? And you were, when we met, story brand was like the big elephant in the room, right? The book was everywhere. Like you couldn't swing a dead cat without hitting 15 story brand consultants and marketers and everything,
Oh, so
and
true.
when we started hanging out, right, you were talking about story, but you were not on that Donald Miller train, right? And but like I think when I think about story after spending so much time with you, I tend to think about it more in the way that you talk about it, right? Like having kind of like the spines, right, that then can change based upon kind of what's like necessary and everything. When you're thinking about the storytelling aspect of video, do people start there?
We often, and I'm so upfront about this, that every time it happens and someone has this realization, it tickles me so much. Like we tell everyone, we are going to trick you into being better storytellers. We always say the exact same line. You work with us, you're going to be tricked into being a better storyteller. And if we do your post-production, we're going to trick you into being better producers of your own work. Those are our two go-tos for those products. And it's very true. It just came from the fact that this was how I always would get people to tell better stories. So going back in time, during my full production career, we're working with this Fortune 100 company. I had no idea they were that big. I knew they were big. I didn't know they were that big. And then we get the gig through a production company, and all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, you're interviewing half the C-suite. And it's like, okay, well this is a little different than what I thought, And then it turned into, oh yeah, you're also interviewing people on the floor, and so you're at the bottom and the top. It's like, okay, what's the story we're trying to tell? And the whole story was to create a video going in front of Congress to essentially lobby them to continue to put money into research and development for metal casting. So all the big businesses in the US that form metal into things. And so I'm like, well, that makes sense. Top and bottom, how are we, making this work or whatever? And some incredible stories. We met third generation, not only C-suite people, but also floor people. They love working there so much. They're treated so well. Some of the people on the floor told us about how the C-suite people would come to their kids, like graduations and stuff. It was a very tight-knit family environment for being such a big company. I think $5.5 billion a year is what they were doing at the time. And it's just like, this is insane, So I'm like in this world of like, wow, this kind of reminds me of what I think the American dream could be in businesses, like big, serving a lot of people, but still know each other, and having all these great interviews, all this stuff's going on. And then we interview one of the C-suite people, and they just crumble and melt and fall in front of the camera. And I'm like, oh no, so like, well, let's shut everything down, having a conversation. He leaves to get a drink of water, comes back. It's not happening. And he's like, I thought I was prepared for this. Like, I don't know, like kind of in my head here, can we shoot tomorrow? Well, that was our last day of filming. And for a small production company like me, I was like, oh, that means I got to get another hotel night for my crew and all this stuff. Like, and that's not in the budget, but like, yeah, we'll make it work, So he goes and we're like, same time tomorrow. Okay. So we get there the next day, get there a little bit early to set up. And I'm talking to my sound guy and I was like, hey, you know what? I got an idea. And he's like, what's that? And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you. And he's like, why would you tell me? You have an idea? I'm like, I just don't worry about it. Yeah, just be ready. Just be ready. Okay. So about 10 minutes goes by. We're all set up. We're kind of waiting. And I was like, hey, just start rolling everything. I want to check something. And he's like, okay. So he speeds camera, he speeds audio, and it's just rolling or whatever. And he's looking at me and he's the one with headphones on. Like, what are we checking? I'm just sitting here and you're sitting there. And then the guy comes in and I'm like, hey, round 2, we're going to do good today, and he's like, yeah, I'm feeling a bit better, whatever. And I was like, oh yeah, yesterday, you mentioned, something about bass fishing and, stories with your grandpa and stuff. And I got some similar stories, it was more like bluegills where we fished, but all that. And, it got me to thinking like how much family matters. And you got guys on the floor that look up to you guys and you've been to each other's events and parties and third generation, like my grandpa worked here and I work here. That is so rich. What do you think of this environment makes people want to stick around? 45 minutes later, I was like, I think we got everything we need. And he was like, what? And I'm like, we're done. Cut everything. And about 5 minutes into everything, my guy knew exactly what was going on. And I tricked him into telling good stories because he never thought we started. And so there's always some version of that I do now, where even though I warn people, I then trick them into telling better stories. And most of the time, what works, especially with entrepreneurs and some professionals, because we all understand systems and problem solving, is I take a story framework. They're all ancient. They've been around forever. I didn't invent these things. I just grab one, and then I help them cram real life into it. And I always think of like bread rising, like it just doesn't quite fit. You were just pushing and cramming your experiences, your expertise, your knowledge, the 20 years you've been doing this thing, and we're cramming it into this framework that the average human just relates to really easily. So you're not becoming something different. You're just having to kind of wiggle a little bit and get into this framework, and that's storytelling. So instead of looking at a framework and trying to fill it in, which is the reason I've always not liked StoryBrand, the business Mad Lib section, but like having it go the other way where it's like, this works and we already know it. We didn't build this. It just exists. Let's cram what you know into it and let's see what that looks like. And you can always refine and break the rules and all that stuff after, but it's a great place to start. And that comfortability that comes with, the permission, again, being given to the fear of I'm not a good storyteller. We all are actually. So let's just cram your life into this frame. It gives them permission to be like, yeah, you are. You just don't know it. It's like when someone says I'm not, I used to get CEOs all the time. I'm not a creative person. Mm-hmm. And I'd be like, all you do is solve problems for a living, bro. That's one of the most creative things in the world is problem solving. Like, yeah, you don't paint or sculpt, whatever, but like you're creative. So yeah, it just kind of comes back around to that.
I had to do that untangling, right? Because like I'm not an artistic person, and for like I've got some artistic people in my family, like my brother's in bands, my grandmother was an artist and everything, and so I couldn't make art, right? And then art is creativity and everything else. And then when I hit this plane of being, this person of fixing problems and figuring things out and everything, I am a creative person. I'm still not artistic, right? But I am creative, and this is, kind of my lane of art now, if you will. It's probably about as close as I'm going to get to like painting and drawing and stuff like that. And so it's cool because choosing to hold it like that is helpful to me with all my like goal setting and striving and pushing and stuff like this.
Yeah, and all these things are just lenses to look through.
Exactly.
At the same problems, I almost envision like a wizard just adding like frog toenails and some dragon's tears or whatever. And poof, we've made this thing. Like we all have that weird talent we're good at that. I love the way you said it might not be art, but it is creative.
100%. So how often do you run into someone who's wanting to make the story about the wrong thing? And you can see it. Like how do you
So
bring that up? How have you gotten better over the years as a consultant, as this person with this ability to see the vein, to like see the
yeah,
thing that's going to create the payoff? How have you gotten better at pointing people in that right direction over the years?
you said it earlier, dog food. I don't say or do or suggest a single thing I don't do every week. I don't. And I can like put my stamp on that and die with it because the beautiful thing about production is it's production. It's idea, it's delivery, and everything in between. So I don't have to venture outside of that and then come back to it and peddle the snake oil and go somewhere else again. I have to live it if I want to be any good at it. And luckily, I happen to enjoy it. So it really has been about that. So when we think about storytelling, it is through storytelling. And the reason I reacted the way I viscerally like I did is because I just finished and it's so fun because this is rolling out as a YouTube video, but also in a newsletter 2 weeks from now. And I'm having so much fun with it. And essentially, it's the 7 deadly sins that kills like business YouTube channels. It really kills any kind of YouTube channel, but I'm aiming it at businesses. And I'm relating these things that people do in real life directly to the actual 7 deadly sins mentioned, in religion. And it's been so much fun because I've like created like iconography for it and all these little fun things just to keep people interested. And what I'm doing is storytelling to get you to pay attention to these are the actual things. So one of them is like envy. So it's people looking at other channels and trying to do what they're doing or follow the same trends or like, look at their best outlier video and make your own. And you're envious of where they're going when what you should do is grow slow, tell a great story, and then become the one that someone else is envious of later. But that's that hard work that takes forever to pay off. And it's not fun or sexy. And we have to keep ourselves in check when it comes to that stuff. So I love that you brought this up because so many people talk about so many of the wrong things because they're committing one of these sins, which essentially is something other than what you should be talking about, sharing, doing. And we all kind of know at least baseline what those things are. It's been difficult, even though it wasn't because of focus, it was other reasons, to stick in our lane. And there's a lot, like you said, I was trying so many things when we met, and I used to be embarrassed of that. Like, why can't I just figure out my thing? I'm doing all this stuff. I'm winning, I'm
Oh
losing.
yeah, yeah. Just
Now
like
I'm
in a
so
hurry.
glad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
Now I'm so glad I tried so many things because there's elements of every one of them
Hmm.
that I ran a very successful cohort for a year and learned I'm never running cohorts again. I'll have one if someone else runs it in my business, but I'm not doing it.
Yep.
And so learning through all those things, it's gotten this focus, like I mentioned earlier, to a spot where I can just about pinpoint what someone's trying to do with what they're saying or the words they're using or whatever, and go, love it, idea, let's keep the core of it, but like go over here. And it's not because I know what to do with their information. It's because humans are human and we know how we relate to each other.
For sure, right? So because I am me and I think about this kind of stuff all the time, right? So the perfect fit for you is someone who's going to listen to your advice, right, and follow your advice and everything. So do you?
So true.
You're shaking your
That's
head.
so true.
So do you sales side, right? Let's drive some value for the founders here. Like, are you qualifying for that? Are you bringing it up? Are you talking about it? Are you defusing that bomb before it has the opportunity to lean into the work that actually help people do? Like, when you know the things that frustrate you in your client work, right? First of all, you're allowed to say no to certain things, right? Permission is one of the things we're talking about here. But then you can weed those people out, right? So
Yeah.
do you weed those people out? Do you acknowledge that it's just like part of every one of your client work things? Like, how do you talk about it? And then how have you gotten better at getting people to hear it when you do need to kind of move them?
Yeah. Yes, we're weeding them out. Oh my God, are we weeding them out? And it's become kind of a fun game. The word game's a little tricky to use, so I want to make sure people know I'm saying game as in like there's a set of rules. If you play by them, you do better than if you break the rules or if you don't play the game well. So in that regard, weeding people out. And in the vein of storytelling, one of the great components of great story is leading with conflict. Bam, problem. Want to stick around and see how we figure this out? All right, watch 90 minutes of this movie. So I use very similar tactics in original or upfront conversations with people to break patterns or to lead with conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah. And generally that's like, don't take this personal. It's only been 15 minutes, but like I'm already feeling like this might be a bad fit. Can I tell you
Yes.
why? And this is nothing against you. It's just, my experience. And most of the time people are open to hear. And a good chunk of the time I'm right. And they're like, oh, you're right. Yeah, that could probably get frustrating for both of us. And it's like, yep.
Hmm.
And so just using storytelling during sales conversations actually ramps people up to respond like they would if they're in the theater going, don't go in that room, you idiot. You know better. You can give them the same kind of feeling when you're on a sales call and they're saying to themselves like, oh, maybe we shouldn't work together. And that's an okay thing. Yeah.
You did this thing one time when we were working together, and because I was talking about this ability, because I've sold with story for a long time, and you were talking about story and video and everything, and so when we were working together, there was always these like little interesting moments of awareness that I know how to use stories and these elements that you did not, but I was assuming you did because you understood the power of story, right?
Yeah.
And so then I remember one time teaching you the thing like, well, when I talk with other people, they tell me this thing, right? And you were like, you just did that to me like the other day.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, yeah, right. Other people have told me that. And you were like, oh, like, and it was like so cool because it you can see the unlock right in you.
Yeah.
All right. So we're running out of time. I'm going long on this one. I hope you have a few extra minutes. Okay. Because I want to talk about this one thing. After we had stopped working together, right? But we're still friends. We're still hanging out. We're still in the community together. We hop onto a call. And it was this delightful moment because you're unveiling this new version of thinking for yourself, right? And you're like, hey, I got this idea. I'm going to show it to you. I was like, okay, like what's up? And you unveiled your solar system thinking to me, right? And it was this beautiful moment, right? Because me being a linear thinker and a systematic thinker, right? And you being more on the creative side of things, right? Whenever I was working with you, and I talk a lot about systems and repeatability and consistency, right? There was like this always kind of like interesting friction with you around systematic thinking and everything. And then when you came back with the solar system aspect, we had this delightful conversation. I don't know if you remember this or not, but we were talking about just systematic and thinking and everything. And you said this beautiful line that I think about all the time. The cup was too full, right? Because you were coming out of your struggle, right? I don't even know if you'd made the move yet down here. And it was such this important thing for me because it's my natural starting place, is systems and thinking and linear thinking and everything else. And on some level, I think that most people can find a way to think about that stuff. But the beautiful thing about being an entrepreneur, right, is that like we're under emotional pressure sometimes without even being aware of it, that takes up that bandwidth and everything. How have you gotten better at managing your bandwidth and like seeing if you're kind of relying on old instinct, old limiting beliefs versus trying to kind of keep the field so you can push, you can be aware? How do you work on that now?
Yeah, I love that you said we all have a way of thinking about this. That is such a big like breakthrough thought for me along the way. So I just love deep things. I'm not saying I'm deep. I don't teach deep things the best, but like I love deep things, and I'll take thoughts way farther than they need to go just for the fun of like what's underneath here or whatever. So when I was working with someone on marketing, and he's like, I love all the stuff you're doing, but you don't have a thing. You need a thing. And I'm like, so as we're talking, he's like, tell me what you say. Max is like, tell me what you say on calls and what you go over. And I'm saying all this stuff. And I got done. He's like, dude, that like solar system thing, that makes total sense. Why don't you say that all the time? I'm like, I do say it all the time. He's like, no, why don't you say it to the public? I'm like, oh yeah, I don't know. I'm like, well, yeah, it's just a metaphor I use on calls to get people to understand what the heck I'm trying to talk about. And he's like, cool, start with that. I'm not saying it is your thing, but like make it your thing. And so I'm thinking about, I'm like, and it's so funny because I can make fun of myself, but I also truly enjoy this so much that I'm not really making fun of myself like I shouldn't be this way. It's just funny to think about. I like grab this idea and I'm like, yeah, this is my thing, and I'm like thinking deeply about it. I'm like, trying to think of every Neil deGrasse Tyson video I've ever seen, and like how he makes complex things so fun to think about. And I'm like, all right, this and that and the other. And like, and your audience is like meteors flying by. And if your gravity's strong enough, you can pull them in a little bit. And maybe next time they fly by, they actually come into your orbit and like orbit. Yeah, that's great. So things are, and what ended up happening is through that kind of fun discovery, I, again, with this permission thing, I gave myself permission to think of this system because the universe is beautifully systematized and absolutely chaotic. And it's both things at the same time. And it's like mind blowing. That's where my science understanding ends. It's like, how is it both things? That's so crazy. And so the understanding of a metaphor and that chaos is part of this gave me permission to look at a system and be like, this is important. And I think I could find a creative way to think about systems so I don't feel so pinned down by them, or I don't feel overwhelmed by anxiety because I'm not good at spreadsheets and, bookkeeping and all these things that a lot of people are good at. So that kind of was the beginning of me going, okay, there's ways to understand systems my own way, which is what you just said. And it's so awesome you said that. And that was the beginning of that journey for me. And I think everyone has a way of understanding something complex if the right story's told. And mine just happened to be this weird analogy I used about the solar system for 2 years with sales calls that I then put into an actual framework I could look at. And all of a sudden I'm like, everything ties together. This is a perfect representation of like a really well done YouTube channel. Bump, put it over that. Cool. This is a great lens to look through for content in general. Bump. And then I started saying things like, although it's chaos, everything is in order. So like if you're going to make a video, it should go do a thing. It should have a job to do. It should connect somewhere else. If it works well, you should know what the result is. And if it doesn't work well, you should look at the analytics and try and make the next one better. That's it. And I was like, wow, that's actually a really complex system thought of in a very easy way. And now I can say things like flow of gravity and how do we pull someone into our big idea, and it all just came from what on paper is just hub and spoke with some boxes and arrows, which when I look at that, I'm like, bleh. So,
well, like, yeah. I wasn't thinking we were going to talk about this very specific thing, but like, I think, and Max is awesome. I need to reach out to Max and have him on here, right? Because like, my whole appreciation of a unique mechanism kind of comes from Max, right? And everything else. And Sherpa is my version of a unique mechanism, and I think diving into the metaphor matters a ton, right? Because like, I know a lot of people and they're like, well, my thing is like a cup of coffee, right? But they're not taking the time to push for the depth. So that way they get flow of gravity and the chaos of plotting the orbits and like all those meaty parts that really land the metaphor, that really land that stuff. Like I can remember whenever I was like, oh, we can go up the mountain, but like I need you to carry oxygen, right? And then well, what would happen if someone got entitled about having to carry their own oxygen? I'm just not going up with you. And then when it like fit in that like mountain Sherpa meta, like it was, this is gonna work, right? Yeah. But I think a lot of people are scared to like really take it to that depth, right? Of finding all that. I call it the connective tissue, right? Because it's like, okay, well, we need an acronym for this, right? And you can do all that stuff, but I really think you got to steep at a pretty deep level for the metaphor to really be multifaceted enough that it doesn't feel like a forced fit. Do you think that's true?
Yeah. 100%. And you end up absorbing it. It becomes part of you.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many things that we see where you watch it a couple times. You're right. I've got some. I think there's a package on my front porch right now with something that you'll enjoy seeing. It's like it literally becomes part of you. I don't know how else to say it. Yeah. And then you can live it. So people like you and I could look at something twice, absorb it, understand it, and probably teach it and charge a little bit of money. Yep. Like we have that ability. But to actually like fully absorb something takes time, even if you're super smart and all the things. And the solar system did that over years. Mm-hmm. And then what ended up happening is we did this rebrand. You mentioned hot sauce. And I'm like, I'm going to keep everything really simple. We're having fun with this thing. So now our products are Hot Sauce Studio, Hot Sauce Strategy, Hot Sauce Editing. Pick your poison. And to take this like thing, I mean, even behind me still, I have my space stuff up. I love it, all that kind of stuff. But like to take this thing that's like beautiful and cosmic and color and all these ways, and now it's just hot sauce strategy. Like we're just going to put a little hot sauce on your strategy, make sure it doesn't suck. It allowed me to learn how to operate within this kind of, metaphor. And now I don't need other people to go through the metaphor with me. I can just take them through. And I still mention some of these things in the flow of gravity when I work directly with people, but I don't have to try and get the outside world to understand what the heck I'm talking about because they understand strategy and I'm a video guy. And I'm not saying you shouldn't stick with your metaphor and have all the fun, but I was able to absorb it so well that it went from the thing that helped me understand systems and it went back to hub and spoke. This is hub and spoke. This is hub and spoke.
To put all this, like, I think into conjecture, right? Like you made this delightful statement a moment ago that both you and I can look at a thing, consume it, figure it out, and then probably go teach it pretty quickly. But like, I've taught a lot of different things at this stage, right? Like martial arts and poker and kung fu and sales and, you know, how to be a founder and how to get clarity and everything, right? So I have a system for how I approach these things, right? And I can't look at anything without like putting the mental divide that is in my space, right? So like consultative selling versus pushy selling, right? And I'm always driving for that line because that line is going to be in literally everything, right? And it's not a perfect metaphor, but it's like literally everything. You're either kind of zero sum or you're conscious about other people's preferences and ideas and desires and concerns. And I feel like you can find that version of it with everything. Like in coaching, you can find the nurturing coaches and you can find the tough love coaches, right? So if I'm going to teach about coaching, first thing we got to talk about is like your intention, right? Like, what are you really here for? You know? So I just love that. But it was this kind of cool thing because you're showing me, you're unveiling this huge thing. And I remember being like, this is just how I think, you know, and being kind of like, am I an idiot? Yeah. I felt like the idiot, even though you're showing me this thing, and I'm like, well, this is how I think about the world, right? And you were like, really? And I was like, yeah. And you just said it almost like out of the side of your mouth. You're like, man, I guess my cup was just like that full that I couldn't even think about these things. And it was in that moment of hearing you say that, I'm like, oh yeah, remember, right? Personalities matter a lot more than we're even thinking about in that moment, right? Yeah. It's effortless for me to think about systematic thinking and steps and stages and everything else like that. And it's hard for me to think just without any of that stuff. So I should also appreciate the inverse of that, right?
Yeah. And I've said many times to many people, I used to view it as a deficit that I only really know how to learn or teach through metaphor and analogy. And now it is a superpower for me and has been. And what's cool is, say the two personality types are ones that just get systems. They're built that way. It's part of their personality to be organized on things. And then there's another group that doesn't. I think the common denominator is kind of story. So if I'm not good at that and you're not good at that, I bet I could still make you understand something through some sort of metaphor, especially if it comes from your world and you understand it, or it's a universal metaphor everyone gets. And so I almost feel like I'm glad that I'm that way, even though I could get to answers faster often if I was just a systems person. Mm-hmm. Sometimes being the story guy, you know, I got to wind around all these things like Candyland or whatever, but eventually I know I can get there and that feels good. Yeah.
I came through, I think I came to story through humor, right? As a deflection mechanism, right? And then I learned about this concept of using stories and case studies as like selling, because, you know, sometimes the most important thing to do is to make sure that the perceptions are aligned, right? If the philosophies don't align, why would we talk about a proposal? It doesn't make any sense. And so sometimes if you can start with an aligning metaphor, an aligning story, right? Like, hey, you might be seeing me as just like a cook, right? But I actually think of myself as a chef. And so if you're looking for a cook, might not be a good fit for you. Can we talk about the difference between cooks and chefs? It's a beautiful moment, right? Because I then have the opportunity to kind of delicately move your thinking without blunt force and needing it to happen. Okay. But that's where metaphor and story first became like that powerful to me. And then I started hanging out with you and, you know, everything else. One last question, then we're gonna jump into the rapid fire questions. And I really appreciate the extra time. Yeah. What is more important as a founder? Is it the founder's story of your origin and why you do this? Or is it the customer's story about the benefit, the value to them? Like, what do you think, if you're a brand new founder today, which one is the better story to be crafting and honing and refining?
I was on the fence until you said beginning founder. You're toward the beginning. If you're anywhere toward the beginning, and we both know very well that that could still be 2.5 years in. If you're near the beginning, I think it is about the founder. I need to know what I'm dealing with. I need to know why I should care. I need to know the brain behind how the product service. Like I need to know those things. And so oftentimes when I'm working with people, I'm trying to creatively answer that question in multiple places, right? So I love Wistia. I use them all the time. They put out a great state of video report every year. 2024, I made a bunch of content about it. So 2025, I was ready. And as soon as the report came out, we made 25 pieces of content, put them out. They did super well. Even got me a little traction with them, so I could kind of talk to them a little bit and all that kind of stuff. And in there, they talked about the third highest retention video on websites. So one that you click on and you stay the longest on. You will probably never guess. Number one is galleries. Duh. If you're going to a gallery, you're here to watch videos. You're here on purpose. Number two was courses. Duh. I signed up for a course. I'm going to watch a video because that's how I'm going to learn the thing. What's number three? And it was contact us. And I'm like, what? So when I was talking to those guys, they went over 20 some million videos, and they always incorporate other companies who have a lot of video data as well, like TikTok and HubSpot and all these other big companies. And I'm like, contact us. And they're like, I know, right? We were so excited to write this part of the report because it's like, what? And so me and my team, we do this all the time when we hear information like YouTube, TV consumption to YouTube passed mobile a couple months ago. And we were like, what? I never watch YouTube on TV. Holy crap. So every time something like that comes out, me and my team talk about it and we try and figure out why. We don't actually know why, but we talk about it and come to some kind of conclusion. So when this stat came out, we're like, why do we think this is? It's so fascinating. Let's talk about it. And for a couple of days, we just dropped DMs in the Google chat, whatever. And then one day it kind of hit me as I was absorbing everyone else's thoughts on this. Kind of cumulatively, I was looking at everyone's stuff and I'm like, oh, you know what? What kind of bucket this all falls in is I'm already leaning in. So if I'm already leaning in and I want to know how to contact you and there's a video and I click it and it's like, hey, thanks for coming to the contact us page. Down below is a form. What's cool, as soon as you fill that out, you're going to get a series of emails with some really helpful stuff. You're going to be able to book a call. I'm the one on the call, so you're seeing my face now, and you'll see it in a couple days. And this is what we're going to talk about, so be prepared, bring this, and that, and we cannot wait to meet you. Holy moly, am I not going to watch that 90-second video that talks about what's going to happen next? We're left in the dark so much as consumers of any kind that it's like, oh, this is really nice. So we came up with this fantasy that you're already leaning in, you already care, so you're going to watch some, and then if it's decent, you're going to watch most of it because you want to know what's going to happen when you decide to give up your time and click contact us. And that just like changed so much for me, of like, this is why communication, this is why story matters, this is why video matters. It's that connection. Man, that you never know how you're going to make it with someone.
That is so cool.
So we might as well try all the different ways we can, and that was one of them.
Like the frame of mind, the mode of thinking, right? All these things are there, right? And it reminds me of the most recent. I think it was Fiverr CEO email, and his big email was like, before you come ask me for headcount, I need you to show me why AI can't cause a lift, right? And everyone is entitled to have their opinion about it, but like, he's trying to change the frame of thinking as opposed to, well, people are busy, let's go bring on another person, right? And I think of the people who've been talking about it so far, it's one of the better ways to kind of like get people to think about the process differently, Fascinating, right? So it's not like, what can we do with video? It's like, or not where should I be using video? It's like, where can video help ease the friction almost, right? Because like when I'm working with people and we're trying to use it in like outreach and in follow-ups and everything, right? It's around getting to that next step. It's around that next step conversion and everything else like that. So
and we have these instincts. Knowing you has shown me on several occasions, like, bro, you're already like, you know what to do. Like, here's a mirror to look in, or here's a framework or whatever. We have these instincts. I was watching a TikTok of all things a couple days ago, and this kid was just out in the street. It was like this little toddler just out in the street. And this guy's like, there's just a baby in the road. Like, holy moly. So he's filming and he runs up to it, and as he approaches, he gets down lower and he's like, "Hey, little guy, like, where's your mommy at?" Like, let's get you safe and over here. And he's looking around like, man, I don't see any adults or whatever. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. He didn't go, "Hey, kid, where's your parents?" He went, "Hey, little one, I'm down here with you. You're safe. Let's get over here," because the instinct's there already. He knows this is a child. It's probably already afraid or it's clueless. Either way, let's treat it as such, make it comfortable, and see if we can help. And we have those instincts for all these things, but we overthink it and then try and like go ask someone else how to figure it out, when a lot of times you can just turn a camera on and talk, edit out the bad parts, and you might have something that might, move the needle.
And in our history together, you've given me like so many like nuggets and helpful ideas, but like one of the things that we've not talked about today is you gave me this advice that is super helpful for me, right? Because like I am a high quality person. I only want to ship high quality work, right? And that means that with things like video and that kind of stuff, I can overthink the whole problem, right? And we were recording the audiobook, right? And I was very nervous about it. I'd never really done anything like that. I didn't even know if we could do it. And you said the most helpful thing, just shoot for the edit. Like, don't even try to be perfect. Like, leave time on the front, on the end, because you're not gonna be able to do it all in one day, right? And those two ideas took all this pressure off of me, right? Of don't even try to be perfect. Commit to doing 2 versions of all of these things, so that way you can kind of look at it. And it is one of those like kind of like, the beginning of The Simpsons, right? The clouds are parting and the shafts of light are coming down. Because like, just the way that you said that, the next day I was in here with my little like blanket fort, trying to do all the noise isolation and everything. But like before that moment, before that conversation of just like, hey, don't put more pressure on yourself. Like, just acknowledge that you're going to have to edit.
Yeah.
Like, talk about permission. Dude, oh my God.
That just rushed back to me too, because I remember after you told me, like, I don't know, just had a blanket, and a mic or whatever. I'm like, dude, that's so great, because I've seen so many stories over the years where some of the best audio and podcasts and stuff, they're in a closet with a bunch of clothes hanging and it just absorbs all the sound. Mm-hmm. I'm like, hey man, you're doing it the right way. That's what I would
worked, do. Right? Like, and I got to feel like an 8-year-old for like as I'm reading my book into the mic, and so then I didn't really have a lot of time to overthink my tonality. So
I can just picture your tall butt sitting crisscross applesauce on the floor under a blanket,
like
hey,
I'm using a mobile whiteboard for the back wall and everything. Like if I breathe hard, this thing is going to come collapsing down around me, right? So and I got my microphone and I'm doing everything Dan can, but I'm also like, hey, I'm not going to get all this done in one shot. I can't get it all done today. So what if I just try, and just start and then look for little, and man, that permission to just try, dude, right? Permission is the so thing cool. we keep coming back to. So super respectful of your time. I listened to your book on audio in the U-Haul driving down to Texas. Did you really?
Yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday. Yeah, I moved down a month before the family, and then went back and we did another big truck and multiple cars. And then on the second trip back, I listened to the book on the way down.
Question for you. Do you think you would be at this place if you had not made the move?
No, which is weird because I work from home.
Exactly.
I don't rely on Texas clients.
So is it community? Because like I remember when you were like, hey, I'm gonna come down and take a look at Texas. I'm like, bring your ass. I'll go show you around and everything, And then you actually made the move, which was like kind of crazy, because like I'd seen other people talk about like, well, I want to move to Texas. It's the land of entrepreneurship and everything else like that. And then you actually came down, and then you're like, yeah, I think I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
And now you've had this crazy growth, this crazy, path,
Yeah.
You don't think you would be here had you not moved down here?
No, and I'm sure if I had spent, a few weeks dissecting this thought, I could probably find some things that make sense, but 100% I wouldn't be. One that I can very easily point out is that my partner Jax is thriving here, and that opportunity didn't exist where we were. The talent did, the drive did, the organizational skills did, just not the environment. So watching her do well makes me do better. So that's one element. But yeah, there's a lot of other stuff that I think I might have just answered almost before you were done asking, because there's no way. And I've told you the story before. We sat there on a couch, looked at each other in 2020, and if you got to bleep it, go ahead. I looked over at her and I'm like, we're both too fucking talented to be this broke. Like, we should not be in this position. something's got to change. And, now we're here, she's doing well, we're encroaching on almost a 400K a year coming up here. And it's like, what is this world? I don't understand anything compared to 5 years ago. This is crazy. And I absolutely 100% know if I was still in Michigan, this would not be happening.
Wild.
Can't tell you all the reasons why, but I know it. I can feel it. Yeah.
We keep finding things for me to extend on. And I think that this is an important one. That's the first sell, is that you're allowed to want more, and that you are more and everything. Like I tell this story kind of like tongue in cheek now, because I was playing poker, like, trying to do it professionally. I don't even think I'd quit yet to try to really do it professionally, but I was playing poker, playing online, and I'm just so mad because I'm so emotionally invested, and I'm tilting and I'm losing and everything. And I broke a mouse because I just picked it up and was like, rah, right? I'm not a ragey guy. And so like my wife now, who's my girlfriend at the time, she looks over at me. She's like, "Like, why is this so important to you?" Right? And I'm 26 years old. I have nothing going for me, right? And just all the piss and vinegar in the world, if you will. I just look at her and I'm like, I'm supposed to be great at something, right? I think this is it. And that was not it, right? And, from like 26 to 31, like I felt stupid for even thinking about that thing, right? For even having that thought. Who am I, right? And now I see it as like, if you're not having those kinds of conversations, right? Like, if you're not going to Kanye a little bit like Kanye, if you're not going to blow your own self up a little, like, no one else is going to do it for you, And so every person I know who has done something and gotten some traction, it starts with that conversation, and it's an enabling conversation. It's not one that you shut down out of like, well, not me, that's for other people and stuff like that. And so, man, I'm so glad you talked about that, and we're not bleeping shit because it needs to be talked about. But okay, I'm going to respect your time. We're going to move into the backside of this. Okay, so I ask everybody to kind of think about 3 areas to try to help some founders out, right? And so because of you being in story and being in video, if a founder is starting today, what do they need to be thinking about with video and story in your point of view?
Video is just a vehicle to take story where it's going. So treat it as such. Video is not the story. It's just a vehicle. And then when it comes to story, tell me like you tell me if we were half a double whiskey in at the bar and I asked you, what do you do for a living? Why do you care about it so much? Who are your people? You're trying to grow it. Why? What's the next step? If everything goes right, where do you think you'll be? Tell me in video like you would if we were sipping on a whiskey and I just met you and I said, what's it all about, man? Which can sound a little heady and a little cliche, but man, that's what works. That's what works. And you can take that once you harness it a little bit, and you can write a script on purpose, and you can talk about very specific topics, and you can make your video 20 minutes long or 2 minutes long. But you got to kind of harness that part first. And as soon as you can get out of the space of thinking that the video is the story, and then put good stories into the vehicle that's going to take it somewhere, you start to realize like, oh, videos don't go viral. Stories do.
Dude, that's well freaking said, because like I, through working with you and, being on this path, right? Like I try to not put that pressure on there, but like I forget that order of operations, right? Because I'm like, what's going to happen, right? Do I need to be on video? Like, I am a storyteller. If I just put myself into this format and I remove the distractions and the frictions, it will enable me. But if my storytelling is garbage, not really going to get all. And like, man, talk about one of those things that like we all probably know but need to be reminded of. That's amazing, dude. Thank you. Next one.
Yeah.
What is the biggest lesson you've had to learn the hard way, right? So maybe a cliche that you've heard 1,000 times, maybe advice that you've seen, you've gone through, but you couldn't think of it this way until you tried and failed to do it some other way. What comes to mind for you as a founder?
I man, it was years ago now, but I remember being on a podcast and someone was like, imagine 1 million people are listening right now and you could say anything you want to them. What would you say? I didn't even think, it just came out of my mouth. And I'm so glad I did, because I've said it like 1,000 times since. And that is, give yourself grace. And what ended up coming from that was like me on this quest, and I've always been on it, to eat my own dog food. And fun fact, if you eat your own dog food all the time, you get really concerned about making your dog food taste good, right? So like, it's not a bad thing. I make really good dog food, so I don't mind eating it every week because it's flavorful and nourishing and it works, right? I had to then start saying, or to myself, like, I'm saying this all the time. Am I giving myself grace? Like, let's make sure that that's, and I would do things like just put that in a Notion document. I would put it in my script somewhere as I'm writing a script, like, give yourself grace, not to say out loud, just to remind me, oh yeah, okay, let's like chill, and now I say it with, absolute integrity, because I'm constantly giving myself grace. And in my world, for me personally, in my personality type, what that's come down to is running a litmus test at a moment's notice of, can I control this or not? And it's so simple, but I suck at it. So I have to go, okay, this is overwhelming. Okay. Can I control this or not? I can't. Okay, Dan, let it go. Let's go to the next thing I can control. Cool. All right. And that's how I get through some of those things. So yeah, give yourself grace, and then give yourself some more.
Grace is a very interesting label, right? Because it's like one of those things. I remember talking to my coach about this, and I said a very similar line of like, man, I think I'm just getting better at giving myself some grace, right? And he goes, that doesn't sound like a John word, right? And like thinking about me in my younger days, and like, I wasn't giving myself much grace. I for damn sure wasn't giving anybody else any grace and everything, because it felt like weakness a little bit, but like, if you're doing something that's brand new, you've never done it before, how good are you supposed to be at it? That's where I try to go to now. Like, I've been doing this for like 3 minutes. How good is it supposed to go? Kind of thing, Last question, Dan, and then we'll let you get on with your day. And once again, really appreciate you coming in and doing this. What is the most alarming trend you're seeing in founders now, right? With your time networking, your time on LinkedIn, with your clients and everything, what do you see as a warning sign that founders should be thinking about taking heed of?
In simple terms, trend chasing. That's easy to understand in like YouTube land. And we spend a lot of time there. A lot of our clients are on YouTube. We're on YouTube. So like, I think about that world a lot. So it's easy to understand there, but in business in general, like I have this fun custom GPT I built to give snarky remarks back towards people who cold DM me and they say something that's not correct. Hey, I saw you have a coaching business and you should blah. I'm not a coach. Where did you get that? So I'll run their messages through my little chat GPT and spit something back out and send them a snarky remark. Always in fun. I'm not rude, but like, saw you did your homework there. Not a coach. So have a good day, whatever. But yeah, having notice of that and then making it into a game and then getting to a point to where getting overrun by cold DMs like a lot of us are. Now I'm paying attention to them because I'm always saying something funny, or I got my little snapback line. If someone connects with me and they don't say anything, I'm like, hey, happy to professionally network. Please don't pitch. I always say that. And they're like, oh, I love that. I'm stealing it. Or they're like, screw you, man. I didn't pitch anything or whatever, and you can kind of separate the
you know exactly where you are with how they respond. Right?
100%. 100%.
Yeah. Right? Well, I only use this for, and I was that guy for a while, right? So I'm saying this from my own perspective, right? But like, because here's the thing, if it was absolutely insane, nobody would get offended.
At all. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so because of the like volume of that, I started noticing trends because I just get so many, and the amount I've gotten, and these are people in their 40s and 50s. And I can say that I'm a couple days away from 45. Like, these are people in their 40s and 50s. These are professionals, well established. Many did corporate and left and did their own business afterwards. Many are longtime entrepreneurs, all the things. I'm seeing so much. We help you X by leveraging AI, blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
Do I use AI? 100%. Do I think that's where things are going? Absolutely, like it or not, right? It is not an anti-AI statement to be like, quit it. Stop telling me that you're the company of all companies to leverage AI to do lead gen or whatever for me, because you're chasing a trend.
Yes.
You still could use all those tools, but be so yourself that someone is drawn to you and then say, by the way, we use AI to do all this cool stuff. Isn't that neat? You don't have to be like, look, we're AI forward, blah, 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 because it's trend chasing. So like, I think that's so detrimental. And I don't think it's detrimental because like people fail necessarily or their business doesn't grow as fast as it could or whatever. I think it's detrimental because in most cases you're wasting time.
Yes.
And the older I get, the more that stuff matters. So it's like, I want my time back. Thank you. So it'd probably be that in any format, just going after what other people are doing.
And I love the zoom on that, right? Because like I think just about everybody right now has an opinion on AI, good, bad, or otherwise, right? But like it's part of a bigger problem, right? Like a couple of years ago, I fell victim to chasing a shiny thing, right? And I'm gonna tell the story super quick because you were kind of part of it. But Clubhouse, you remember, right?
Oh yeah.
I at the time. I don't know if anyone is paying attention now, but Clubhouse was a vocal only social media network, right? And me being a conversational sales coach, right? I was kind of thinking like, okay. And then I was hearing it from other people. You got to be on Clubhouse. You got to be on Clubhouse. Now here's the crazy thing, right? Because I like keeping everything super real. So I'm not perfect either. So I was running on an Android phone and Clubhouse was an Apple only exclusive app. I actually bought a used phone off of a common friend of ours, Dieter, right? The guy who was probably the reason why we're connected. So that way I could go do a thing on Clubhouse and launch on Clubhouse. And I planned this whole big thing. It was an 8-hour thing, right? And I was like, I'm going to spend a whole day on Clubhouse. It's just going to be open. And I thought it would be this like game change. Like nothing changed at all. Yeah. Right. And now I don't even know if that social media platform is like still up, but like I was putting massive effort to move in that direction, right? I was chasing a shiny thing, right? I was chasing this thing. And like, I think it's important to kind of talk about the idea of like, you got to test and you got to try, you have to experiment, you got to push and everything is like this, but like, don't start selling yourself that this thing is going to change literally everything, right? Because there's going to be a new thing tomorrow and next week and next month and stuff like that. So I love that you didn't make it
what a great story.
Just about AI, right? Because like there's a lot of people doing that right now, but the bigger problem is chasing trends that don't align with your philosophies or with your thinking or with your goals.
Yeah, man, it's so true too. We recently, with the rebrand, which launched at the beginning of June, built a custom GPT called the Storytelling Coach. And what's funny is we've had these storytelling frameworks in a free to access space for 3.5 years, 3 years, somewhere in there, and minimal interaction with that portion of that space. And it's always bummed me out because they're so good. They're so good. It's just a way to go from a blinking cursor to having something. And then I was like, I want to do a fun lead magnet for the launch. And we've got all these, new colors and new name for everything. Let's build a custom GPT. So I did. And I think we've put 800 people through it. And I'm like, of course. It's on a different platform in a different format. And everyone's like, woo, AI. And they've used it. Now, it was quickly followed by, thank God people are telling better stories today because we built this thing. Like, that's great. But it was so funny to me of course, this is the thing. And this won't matter at some point in time, but it does right now. And we didn't do it to like leverage that. We did it because we thought it would be fun. But I realized after it did well that I was like, yeah, of course, everyone's going and using it in this format because AI and ChatGPT.
Yep.
But yeah, I've always, I did a experiment, right when I got here. So like 3.5 years ago, where I wrote a newsletter, the old newsletter, the Antipreneur newsletter. And I wrote half of it with AI and I wrote the other half personally. And then the whole thing was like, guess which is which. And I'll pick a random correct guesser. And I gave him a $25 Amazon gift card. And that newsletter got the most opens, the most clicks, and the most where someone hit reply and was like, oh my God, this was so fun. What a great newsletter. Like, yeah, of any percentage wise of any newsletter I've ever put out. And it made me so mad that I never talked about AI again. I was like, nope, I'm not going to be that guy. Nope. Cause I was just doing it for fun. I'm like, I wonder if they could tell if I wrote it or he wrote it. But
okay.
Yeah.
I lied. I want to ask this other question because you just brought it up. Okay. And this is super wooey, right? But I'm curious. When we met, you were doing the Antipreneur thing. Okay. Like as your moniker. And when I first saw it, I was like, oh, that kind of guy, right? And
Fair.
and you weren't that
So
guy,
fair.
right? But there's this line. One of your lines is, "You're now old enough that all the cliches matter," and I dig that line. I talk about it with other people and give you credit. But one of these cliches that is matter is like, I don't want to know what you're against. I want to know what you're for, right? And I think thinking back on that time of like meeting you as the entrepreneur, and it is feeling like not aligned with who this guy was on the calls, right? He wasn't a try hard.
Yeah.
Like it felt like you were the entrepreneur version of a tap out t-shirt almost, right? Like it just felt like so not aligned, right? I'm curious, when you think back upon your time as like the entrepreneur, right? Do you think that like trying to hold it on that negative was tainting you, putting a chip on your shoulder, like creating this perception that didn't need to be there? Do you think you're better now, not as the entrepreneur, with how you think about business and entrepreneurship?
I mean, man, there's a lot of facets to that. I definitely did not have the foresight to use that moniker for any kind of like growth or gain. I wish I had the foresight of like, this could be something. But essentially, it just came from as I started to learn more about online entrepreneurship. I started to see things I saw in all the other facets of my life and world, including the music industry and stuff like, oh, geez, yeah. The greasy guy that's got a venue and he overcharges and then doesn't give you your drink tickets, and that guy that scams everyone for $5 at a time. I hate that guy. Oh, I'm so anti this online entrepreneurship crap. It's like, don't call me an entrepreneur, call me the antipreneur. And I have a video, the first time I ever said it out loud, and I just kept talking. And then later, as I was editing that video, and I put a series of videos out over like a month or something, I was challenged by someone I know, Ryan Foland, and he's like, make a month's worth of videos and see what happens. It was one of those days of those 30 videos that I said it. And then I kind of came back to him like, I kind of like that, you know? And so I just, you know, held on to it a little bit. I would say it here and there in a video. And then I was spinning up a podcast. I'm like, what if I call this thing? And it was just like, well, I'm lazy. It's the Antipreneur Show. Let's just move on. So it just kind of became and then stuck. It really, there wasn't that much thought in it. But then when people would ask, it gave something to talk about.
Sure.
I'm like, oh, you know, I'm like anti-magic pills, silver bullets. I got the blueprint for everything. I built this. You can build it too, just like me. I'm anti all that crap. And I'm really about like relationships and building, you know, actual solutions to problems that actually exist and those sorts of things. And it still was confusing for people, but they kind of got it if I got a chance to explain myself to them. And in retrospect, and why I was laughing so hard at some of those things, like the tap out t-shirt is so good because I love buckle jeans, and that's where the affliction of tap out shirts lived, you know? So I shop at that store. I just don't wear those shirts. So like, I'm so familiar with that. Like, oh, you took it to the embroidered jeans and the tap out shirt. Dang.
It's the combo of the two.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
At least bend the bill of your hat, please. You know, but
at least bend the bill of your hat.
But in like retrospect, it's so funny that you're saying that, because what it reminds me of is every time in my life, I came up more on the like hardcore metal side of things, and then got into melodic rock and stuff after that. And a lot of my friends, we'd go to the same venues, but not always the same shows, because they were more into like punk and stuff like that. I'm a fan of punk as a genre. I'm just not a punk fan. So I thought about, you know, those days and how people would say like, I'm punk. And I'm like, man, you're not punk as soon as you say you are. Like, it makes no sense to me. If you got to tell me you're punk, you're not punk. You should be like, screw this guy. I don't even need to talk to him. That's punk rock, you know? So like looking back, saying I'm the antipreneur is like saying you're punk rock. Like,
man, are you a Watts guy? Are you Alan Watts, all that stuff?
I know that name.
So the opening of the Tao Te Ching, it's like the Tao that can be described and defined is not the Tao, right? Which is kind of like the same, like if you got to run around and tell everyone you're punk rock, you're just fundamentally not, right? It's like these guys who get on LinkedIn and they talk about like how like alpha they are and all and that whole like alpha beta and all that. Like, if you really were, you wouldn't be on here posting about it. Promise.
Yeah, you wouldn't know. It's the quiet guy in the corner just sipping on the whiskey. Like, shh.
Dan, thank you so much for coming in here. We went 30 minutes long because you're awesome and we've known each other for a very long time. And man, I just really appreciate the extra time. If people want to come hang out with you, learn more about what you're working on, follow your journey, where do they need to come check you out?
Yeah. So about 4 years ago now, I bought a URL. I think Noah Kagan might have had a little piece of the reason I did this. I bought a URL called danhaslinks.com. And that way you can just go click a button and find me anywhere. And I can say it out loud on a podcast and someone might remember danhaslinks.com. So if you go there, there's a link stack of buttons and you can click wherever you hang out most and I'll be there.
Perfect. Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes. That way, if anyone wants to come take that action and they don't know how to spell Dan or links, we can get them a link. All right. Dude.
Has. Is that with a Z? What are you talking
Two
about?
A's. Weird.
Yeah.
All right. So Dan, thank you so much, man, for doing this. I mean, I said it at the top, but I'm going to say it again. Like my journey would be completely different without meeting you and spending time with you and everything. And I wouldn't have any of this video knowledge. I probably wouldn't be doing video stuff at all if we didn't know each other. And man, just huge impact and really appreciate you coming on the show. And I can't wait to get this out and hopefully help some more founders on their path. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you. It's humbling to hear. And yeah, I've always just thought you're one of the smartest people I know. So I try and just keep up. So
Thank you, my friend.
so it's fun.
We'll talk soon. Appreciate you.